Friendship. Friendship again?
Y'all couldn't hear me. That's right. Thanks. I forgot because I'm using the other mics. They are not programmed to my Stream Deck. So every time I switch cameras, it doesn't switch my mics for me. But what's going on? Thank you so much for your 12 months. It's quite weird and insane to think that two of you have been around that long and supported us that long. But I want to thank you. It does mean a lot to us. So yeah, it's just very weird to think about that. But that's why we have the board, to remind us. So we will get that on Monday. We'll get that done for you. Since we'll be back, I will have all of this set up back in the studio for that. But for right now, I've just been doing a bunch of work back here, and I plan on doing something for the Dice Profiler on Sunday again. So I didn't really want to like move it all back just for Friday and then move it all back in here, especially because I wasn't available for Monday. So it wasn't worth moving it for one day, but that's why we're here. But yeah, we're just hanging out right now. I'm about to go live on TikTok as well, so I'm just going to kind of do a dual live, and we're going to see if anybody shows up for some Q&A. I'm just kind of down to answer questions from, either end of the playing field. Kind of just what I've been doing on TikTok recently is giving some advice, but I'm hoping that I'll get a little bit more engagement on TikTok, since that's kind of what's happening in the community recently. So yeah, well, let's see how everything goes with TikTok once I go live. So if you also want to follow us over there, you can also just pop on over to TikTok, and you'll see probably just a slightly different perspective, because it won't be the same camera. It's not going to be this camera. I have a camera right here, so I kind of have a dual camera system depending on which chat I'm kind of looking at. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. Let's go live. Wait, no. Oh, I didn't save anything. Hang on. Chat Q&A. Yeah. Bam. All right. There we are. So now we are up and running on both. The TikTok camera is just ever so slightly different than this one, so I have to like figure out exactly the best place to be on both cams. But we're back. We're up and live on both sides, which is fantastic. So I guess at this point we are just waiting for questions to come in, and that's kind of it. We are here for anybody's questions. If you have any topics that you guys want to talk about, anything from narratives to story building, campaigns, encounter based, and I don't know. At this point, there's really going to be no official topic as long as it is D&D related. That's really what we're here for. It's kind of been something that I've been doing a lot on TikTok recently, just giving my 2 cents, because I don't know. I started the TikTok channel originally just to give us another outlet, right? Like we wanted to get more interest in the podcast, get more interested in the Twitch stream, and eventually it got to the point to where it wasn't really bringing anybody over. So I tried a different tactic. I started doing actual content, which was really nice. Started talking about High Point a little bit more, but I realized I was really approaching it so much more as a content generation, right? So for me, the weird part was we set out to build a community of there's no wrong way to play, right? That was kind of originally what Misfit Gamer Studios, the podcast, and the Twitch stream was all about. And as I was making content for TikTok over the last year, it wasn't really content about that. It was thought-provoking content, and it was entertaining content. But for the longest time, I didn't realize that I kind of fell into the trap of trying to be a TikToker without knowing how to be a TikToker. And instead of actually going with the idea that I was really trying to do in the first place, which was build that community and build this idea that there really isn't a wrong way to play. But unfortunately, it took a year to kind of ebb and flow the with the content that I'm making. I got a couple good hits out there, but I don't know. I just never really felt like I was hitting the mark with it. So a lot more recently, I've been trying to focus on more interactive content. Been really trying to focus on reaching out to other content creators, stitching a lot more content, and being in the comment section a little bit more and engaging with people and giving a little bit more, because I think at the end of the day, I guess my ideal goal would be less an entertainment TikToker, and I want to be more of a content creator for content creators, if that makes sense. It's the idea that I like making the thought provoking things, and I like to see where other people take those ideas, and I like to give ideas to people to use. It's not just about, hey, I have a thing and I want everyone to use my thing and come play my game, but at the same time, I have a very unique way of approaching the game, and I want to give that perspective in hopes that somebody can take that and make it better for themselves. Because that's, again, originally where Misfit Gamer Studios started. We started with this idea that we wanted people to be open with their idea and help them expand upon it, help them make it better. And that's, I think, where I want to start turning the content now, is shifted away from trying to be entertaining. I mean, I still want to do that. I still like my entertaining content, but I've started to realize, especially this last week, that I think I will just do better at making content that helps people and helps other content creators. And I think I've even started to see a little bit more of a kickback for that. Like some of my more recent stitches have really been kicking off, which is, again, much more of that interaction that I wanted originally for the brand. So yeah, I'm excited to see where we go and where we continue with it. I'm gonna stick with some of my normal kind of shorts and content, but I want to get much more into creating with other creators. Speaking of which, we have a collab coming up with our side channel, the Dice Profiler. That's something that we just kicked off. We just launched that last month, and we already have a collab happening with one of the newer content creators out there, Krista Portis. She has sent over one of her favorite D20s that the Dice Profiler will be rolling and making a custom personality profile, and then sending that back. So that's going to be really fun. I'm hoping that we can do that this weekend or next weekend. It's just going to depend on both of our schedules. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm really curious, because that's something that I wanted to do when I started the Dice Profiler, and I wanted to make this new way of buying dice, right? The idea that you can get to know your die before you buy and really get to have an opportunity to see a dice in action before you made the final purchase. I thought that's a really cool idea. I think it still has a lot of potential, but again, being the kind of person and being the kind of brand that I want to be there also for content creators, I think it'll be a very interesting opportunity to do this collab, because I would love to do this collab with more content creators. I would love to do custom personality profiles to kind of get that hype going and get those connections out there, and just be able to give content creators something. Because I see that a lot, where when content creators give each other merch, it's really cool to see the content creators promote each other that way. But one of my favorite things is when content creators get personalized things for each other. And it's just, to me, there's so much more of a genuine community building going on when that happens. And I feel like it just feels like those connections are more about, they're more genuine than just a business transaction, if that makes sense. When they're customized, I feel like it feels more like they want to work together, instead of, hey, this is just going to be profitable. So that's what I'm hoping with the custom personality profiles, is being able to reach out to some creators that I work with, and over time be able to offer that to them as just an opportunity to do another live together, get them something that's a little bit customized, and just be able to I don't want to say modernize, what's the word I'm looking for, I want to be able to normalize the idea that content creators should be reaching out a little bit more, because there's a lot of collabs, especially on lives, but I'd like to see more actual, like, the word I'm looking for? Edited collabs. More shorts, more skits, more things of people working together and building off of each other instead of just sharing each other's videos, which is very, very common. And stitches are, really good too, which I love a lot of the stitches that happen in our community, especially just recently. There's been so much good collabing going on in stitches, but those are kind of, impromptu, and it would be great for us to start working together, because there's a lot of DMs in my circle right now that, I see a lot of DMs come into my page, which is just, I think that excites me more than page views and likes. Like, I like it when a video pops off, but there's something about when I log in and I see that, 30 people have viewed my profile. And when I go check that list, if I recognize like 5 of those people, that's to me more exciting than, hey, I have a whole bunch of likes on this video, because it means that I'm at least producing things that other content creators want to be aware of and might want to use. And that again tells me that that's the direction that I want to take, and that's the direction I should take the brand. Because if that's what excites me, then that's what I need to zero in on. That's what I need to look at as my motivation. So I'm hoping that doing more content for other content creators and promoting this idea that we start reaching out and working together a whole lot more directly and less in this, in just stitching when it makes sense. It's something that I want to kind of spearhead. So I'm really hoping that we'll get there. What's going on, everybody? Butter, how you doing? Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, let me know in chat. Anything TTRPG, D&D related. I'm kind of here for any kind of Q&A that y'all are interested in the D&D topics. So anything from player questions to DM questions, campaign questions, encounters, anything like that. I do a lot of different types of content on my channel regarding TTRPGs. I run my own setting that I've been developing for over 10 years. And I'm an old school second edition player, so I prefer second edition. I prefer the older editions. My setting is based in second edition Forgotten Realms, but I've played and checked out pretty much every D&D edition and many of the supplementals. So that's kind of my history, and I just like to chat about my ideas, what I do, and how I do them. So yeah, feel free to drop questions in chat. Otherwise, we're just talking about, what were we talking about? I guess how we got here, how Misfit Gamer Studios developed into this, seeing as how we started out doing the live stream on Twitch, just with no real direction. I remember my very first episode was me just sitting on my couch in the stream, holding the microphone, having no idea what to talk about. So, and now, here I am trying to do a dual stream on TikTok and Twitch. That's fascinating to me. I think that just happens with TikTok now. For some reason, my TikTok app just completely closes, and all I see is my camera, but I don't see any of the other part of the app, which is weird. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's all about, but I can still see chat, so I guess that's all that matters. And as long as I'm live, that's all that matters. So what's next for OSR? So what is next for One Shot Rivals, our side project that we are working on over here on Twitch? So what was supposed to happen today, my co-host Kage was not able to show up today due to personal reasons. So they're gonna heal up. They're doing all right. Just couldn't really make the trip over. So they'll be back on Monday. But today was supposed to be the actual play test for the alpha build. So right now we have everything built out, all of the characters minus the most recent one. I think it's Blade. We have everything built out for. We've finalized movement, we've finalized action economy, we've finalized life, damage, ranges, and ult charges. We've pretty much done all of the numbers and brought them as close as we can to the point to where we won't be able to do anything with them until we actually test it in game. Oh yeah, we absolutely will add Blade. I just haven't sat down and done it. It'll take me maybe 10 minutes, especially now that we've cycled through and finished up all the other stuff. But yeah, we finalized all the numbers as much as we can. without officially testing it. So today was supposed to be the alpha, the alpha build actual like test. So we were supposed to sit down, Kage and I, actually play out an entire round, start to finish, each taking a team, and trying to figure it out. We were actually going to roll for everything because, you know, we'll be doing most of that in the background and coding all of the rolls and stuff just to make it smoother for stream. But we'll be actually doing that next. So that that's most likely going to be next Friday. Is if he's able to show up next week, then we will basically be doing our alpha build test game. And if that works, if that finalizes our numbers and we get the actual like game tested and we like how it works, then we will want to move to a stream test. So we'll actually play the VTT on stream with viewers, and it'll be very clunky, very slow, but we'll try to manage. And once we do all of that, it's basically ready to be sent over to a developer, and then I can get the interface ready. Once the interface is ready, we can actually go live with beta testing, which will actually be testing everything with chat, with a live queue, and basically after that, the only tweaks we'll make are to the numbers just to make the game flow better. But yeah, once Kage and I can actually test the game out for a full round and know that it actually works, I can send it over to the developer and we will have the VTT interface ready. And once we have that, we'll be playing. So I don't know how long that will take. I will probably have to wait till next month to budget out money for the developer, but definitely end of the year. I will most likely have a full playable beta version of the game, like with chat being able to do all the commands and get in, and have the web interface. Everything should be done by the end of the year, which is weird considering that OSR is that's like the newest, second to the Dice Profiler, that's the newest project. You know, the ADMG, the APHB were some of our first project ideas that we've put on the back burner till next year. And then, of course, there's my more recent idea of De-Evolved, which is going to be a pre-TTRPG kind of game. So that's also been put on the back burner till next year. So Dice Profiler and OSR kind of took precedence, and it's amazing that I was able, like, those ideas we had been talking about for like a year and a half. Like the ADMG we've been talking about for almost 2 years, and De-Evolved we've been talking about for months. But it's kind of weird to me that both the Dice Profiler and OSR were some of our newest side projects, and they're already live. Like the Dice Profiler has been live for a month. I have profile, and, you know, like it's just kind of weird to be like this idea right here. This entire idea is less than 3 months old, and I'm holding the actual product. It's weird to me that I had plans for Misfit Gamer Studios, but it wasn't until I wanted the Dice Profiler to launch and actually be able to sell the product that I knew I needed to do all the major business stuff. But it's crazy that in less than 3 months, I was like, I want to sell dice profiles. And now I started a business, like Misfit Gamer Studios LLC is actually launched. We have product, we have the website, we have the shop, and now OSR is actively in testing. It's just a weird series of events that took place, considering that there were so many other projects that we were just going back and forth with for so long. And yeah, we're here now. So yeah, that's the next plans for OSR. Is once we get the alpha game test, then I can send it to the developer, and then once they're done, I can start it up with the beta testing. Ruby, how's it going? Bruble, how you doing? Nice to see you. Thank you for showing up. Character idea, but don't know how you can bring it to life. Well, that is a fantastic topic to bring up, because that's what we're here for today. I'd be happy to help you with that if you'd like any of my assistance. That is one of the things that I really enjoy doing, is bringing characters, NPCs, you know, to life and to make them a little bit more tangible, make them more either realistic in the setting or just make them more compatible with the player. Just something that somebody can connect with a little bit more. So I'd love to hear your ideas, and I'd love to give you any advice that I can. Otherwise, let me know if you guys have any questions in chat. We are still here to just answer anything, either about us or D&D or TTRPGs in general. About it. So you got any other questions? I know you were excited. I'm curious what you're most excited for OSR. For me, I mean, obviously the whole idea in general, but I honestly think it's the interface. I really think that the VTT aspect is where I'm really excited. The hardest part is going to be design, because we got to tread very, very, very carefully with copyright and trademark stuff. But I really am going to be interested to see how it works. I think I'm most excited for the technology behind it. The way that the rounds, the initiative, and the action economy is going to work, how the players are going to have to select it, and how it's going to interact with the map and integrate. That I'm most excited for the technology that's going to make it work. Less for the game and the work that I'm going to have to do to narrate every round. Because that's the other thing that I really have to think about is I have to like sit there and still narrate everything. I'm just trying to like streamline the players' actions and how the initiative will roll. So yeah, we'll see. Soul is most excited about characters. When you brought up the idea to begin with, yeah, I think we have some really good representations of the characters. I think Kage and I have done just a banger of a job. He's really helped, I think, bring a lot of the characters not just into balance but into focus. There was a lot of things that I had that really were in the right direction, but just having someone else that can bounce ideas off of and who also knows the process and knows the end goal and the result that we want, it's just so nice to be able to work with him to really make those things happen. And yeah, I think we have some solid character builds. I think we nailed our goal. The biggest goal for the character builds was to make every character feel. We wanted layers. We basically wanted characters to feel like the characters from Marvel Rivals. We wanted them to feel like the type of character that they are, whether it's a duelist, strategist, a vanguard, and the other layer is that we wanted them all to feel unique. We never wanted a situation where players felt like it didn't matter if I choose A or B because I get the same result. We didn't want any one character to basically be a mirror image of another character with only like small changes. So changing out ranges, damages, fire rates, all of that really has boiled down to every character fitting their role perfectly, feeling like the character from the game, but also feeling like a unique experience, so that when you eventually want to play OSR or watch OSR, hoping that every game will truly feel unique and different because of how each character plays. It'll be interesting to see if we ever get to the point of playing so often that people can develop meta. I don't know if that will ever be possible, but we'll find out. All right, Ruble. So I would like to be a swashbuckler rogue, good combo already, that is also a vampire. Most likely have to be fully clothed because sunlight or armor, not opposed to wearing plate. Okay, so that makes sense. So you want to be swashbuckling rogue, okay, and a vampire. Gotcha. So we're going to have to deal with, you want to be piratey, but we also want to worry about the sun and try to keep the fact that I'm a vampire hidden from the rest of the party as long as possible. Not that I'd be evil, but obviously the average Joe doesn't want to be, doesn't necessarily enjoy the company of a vampire. Makes perfect sense. So first idea was maybe swashbuckling paladin for CC and such, but not 100%. Okay, cool. I really, really like this. So we'll just cover a couple of different ways that we can bring this type of character to life. Now, one thing that I would try to answer first for my approach with this character is, when did the vampirism happen? Are they a vampire pirate, basically a pirate or a vampire who is an active pirate, active, sailor? Or is this a swashbuckler rode by trade, someone who was a pirate, lived on the high seas, and during one of their land escapades turned into a vampire, and now they struggle with life after that, right? Because that decision alone will really help guide you for the rest of the story. So you don't have to answer me right now. I'm just going to kind of just talk off, the top of my head for a few minutes. But that would be the first question I would ask myself is, if I am a vampire who sails the seas, or am I someone who sailed the seas and now becoming a vampire, I have to struggle with this concept of, can I continue my life on the seas? So those would be the first two questions. Now, how to then go about the party interaction. Now, when it comes to vampirism, it really is going to depend on how your DM and how the setting that you play in is treats vampires and treats their abilities. Because for the most part, if you are really interested, Vampire the Masquerade has some of the best mechanics, or at least in my opinion, the best explanations for how to run a hidden society for gameplay. So highly suggest just looking into Vampire the Masquerade for ways to have your DM help you play that role without being obvious. Now, another issue that you have to think about is whether or not you're hiding this from the players or their characters. That is a big thing that I see a lot happening in discussions that I don't think people answer for themselves, right? Because some people want to go so far as they don't want the players themselves, the real life people, to know what's happening, which is nice and all, but usually, in my opinion and in my experience, that usually blows up in their face or doesn't really get the effect they want, because players aren't dumb and they see the metagaming between you and the DM, and they see the subversion and the things behind it. But at the same time, players are also metagamers. They know a lot. So it doesn't take more than a small slip up from you or the DM to say, hey, this doesn't happen. And someone go, oh, well, if that doesn't happen, that means you're XYZ. So if it's just from the player, or if it's just from the characters in the game, and you just want to kind of play it off as, hey, everyone's, playing that role that they don't know, it would be a lot easier. It'll be a lot easier for you to play off those roles, because then even the players, can instigate interesting role play, right? They could see you doing something and the player's like, you're being obvious, but my character doesn't know. So I'm going to use this opportunity to see if my character would notice, right? Those can be a lot of fun. But that's the second question. The second layer is, who are you hiding it from? The players or the characters? And beyond that, how to make it feel more alive. The paladin is interesting. A swashbuckler paladin would be interesting. I mean, obviously, the swashbuckler rogue is a very classic combo. This comes down to kind of related to the first question is, what is the mentality of your character? Are you a prior, life on the seas, or are you an active life on the seas, right? So, because I think you mentioned here, yeah, you're no longer a pirate given that you can't sail the seven seas because of sunlight. And so it's more of, after the fact. Now, again, depends on where the setting takes place, because there are many swashbucklers who don't necessarily sail the high seas. If you take a setting like Waterdeep, for instance. What's going on, Quachi? How you doing? If you take a setting like Waterdeep, right? You could be a swashbuckler who was a merchant trader throughout the rivers and byways of Waterdeep. And that could be something that would make it a lot easier for you to be an active vampiric pirate or vampiric swashbuckler, because you wouldn't normally be in a place where you have to worry about the sun. It could also be now your goal. Maybe you were sailing the seas, and now that you can't, you still want that lifestyle. So in order to get that lifestyle, your whole life goal now is to get to Waterdeep, right? Because you know that down there you can still capture a merchant vessel and you could live your life still living that way, right? Again, the setting depends so much, because you could then try to go sail the astral seas. I mean, if you're a vampire and you're immortal, maybe your now life goal is to sail the the astral seas, and maybe that's where you came from. Again, there's so many ways to kind of apply that idea once you know where that idea is coming from. You cast $1 million in nickels. That, oh Jesus, I don't know what would be worse, nickels or dimes. Nickels are heavier, but dimes are just a lot more difficult to pick up. Dimes would sound better though. So yeah, so I think that when it comes to it, the swashbuckler paladin would be very, very interesting. I'm really curious what your oath or your divinity would be, because I'm always curious with paladins if people go oath based or divinity based. And so with the swashbuckler paladin, I'm really curious how that build would turn out, and how the vampirism works into that. Let's see, what are other options? Because see, the biggest problems with being a vampire, depending on the lore that you choose, is either, obviously, it's primarily daylight, is what most people are going to say they have the issue with. Oh, did I just lose TikTok altogether? Hang on. Oh, what is going on? I don't know why. I just lost TikTok live. So, luckily, I'm talking to Twitch right now. But that is something to also consider is what afflictions does your vampire have? Vampires don't necessarily always have to have, oh, yeah, there we go. Live again. I think we might be live. I don't know what happened there, but we're back. So yeah, so because if you're just dealing with sunlight as the issue for your vampirism, if you're just doing the classical one, that definitely has issues. But working underneath the ship, having a customized ship, like you said, wearing robes, there's a lot of ways that you could work that out. But another common issue with vampirism would be the issue, especially if you're going classic, is not being able to pass moving water. And a lot of the times, that's why you have it in the story that the vampire would need to have their coffin carefully loaded in. Usually the coffin has to have dirt inside of it, so officially there's usually a lot of different steps for vampires that have to cross water. So depending upon what law your DM's applying, depends on what issues you have. Now, also consider the fact that depending on how much creativity your DM will allow you, you could also go, kind of going back to our conversation about OSR, you could go the Blade route. You could try to go a Nosferatu, daylight doesn't bother me, I don't have the same issues kind of situation, right? Like there's a lot of situations in which you don't have to be the bloodthirsty savage vampire that is burned in sunlight and can't do anything. So it really comes down to what type of gameplay you're looking for and what your DM will let you get away with. I do think that the swashbuckler vampire is an amazing route to go. I think it'll make a lot of unique and creative opportunities. It comes down to, how long, how old are you? How long have you been around? I mean, again, depending upon the setting, you could be like the equivalent of a modern 17th century pirate, but in modern day. So you could say I'm a vampire and I used to be a swashbuckler 400 years ago, right? Like, there's a lot of unique and creative ways that could work. But yeah, the setting I think also matters, and how much creativity your DM will give you. I think those are going to be the next steps that you want to kind of figure out. Because vampirism, it's a unique set of limitations, but some DMs just don't know how to make those limitations enjoyable. If that makes sense, right? Like some DMs are just like, oh, you can't go outside, it's daylight, you're stuck in this room, and it's like, that's it, like you didn't think about this, I'm locked in the room, and they're like, sunlight, it just, there's always opportunity to make it more enriching. It just depends on, can your DM get you to that stage where RP matters. What's going on, Broomball? How you doing? Nice to see you. Bow, thank you for joining. I appreciate y'all. I am live on Twitch and TikTok, so if I'm answering questions, it may be in the other chat. But if you have any questions, let me know. And I'm just doing an open Q&A. Let's see. Brewell asks thoughts on the oath of the crown, and a crown being the night sky. So that would make a lot of sense for a swashbuckler paladin. The oath of the sky. I mean, again, oaths are a little bit weird for me. I'm always weirded. I'm always a little bit weird with oaths on paladins because I'm much more, I'm more old school in the concept of power coming from somewhere, and oath magic to me just is it's a different level. To me, I feel like fifth edition has watered down the concept of oath magic. Like for me, oath magic is pure. It comes from something far beyond what the individual would normally be capable of, without an outside force. And so the idea that just any paladin can just be like, yep, you know what? This thing I think of, it's so important to me, I get magic. I don't know. I've never been a fan of that. I'm not saying that, like, I think that there needs to be an alternative to the divine paladin. I think that clerics and paladins are fine being under a religious and divine kind of concept, but I don't necessarily think that there isn't room for something like a paladin that gets its magic from somewhere else. So when you say, you get it from the oath of the crown, oath of the sky, I just have a hard time understanding, like, what does that mean for the paladin? Because I made a short about this on TikTok not too long ago about how things should relate to not only who the player is, but what they can do. So, I made a couple of shorts about how you could take certain classes and limit what they can do based on the situation. So like when a barbarian can rage, when a paladin can smite. And that's what I think of when I think of oaths, like oath to the sky. I have a hard time understanding what is that paladin drawing on in order to do the thing, right? Like what service can they fight against in order to claim this power? Because I think of smite as being something that's used in defense of, or in perpetuity of, like you're trying to promote something, and you're trying to use this power to show people why they should follow this oath or why they should believe in your mantra. And the thing is when some of these oaths, like oath to the sky, I just have a hard time being like, well, what are you fighting for? Like, who could you fight against that would allow you to be like, that's against my concept? I'm going to summon the power of the sky because you're against me. It's a little bit harder for me personally to come up with those ideas. So that's why it's just oath magic is one of those, like, what's so intense about the sky or navigation that would give you that drive, that power, that ability to bring in magic. That would be my question for that one. So yeah, I like oaths being much more about like an ideology. So the mindset of, using your example, a paladin with an oath to the sky might be a paladin with an oath to traditional sailing methods. Like I am, they're an oath to the sailor's creed or the sailor's method, where their entire ideology is don't disrupt the way that we sail, right? So if someone says, hey, I've made a compass that you don't have to use by starlight, maybe you're against that because it's going against the way that people need to learn how to navigate by the stars, right? That would be something I can get behind, but that would be where I would need that little bit of logic of what's the goal and what's the drive for that paladin. Hildy, thank you. What's going on? A paladin gets its magic from somewhere else would be a warlock, right? So interesting. I've actually had that conversation before, and yeah, paladins and warlocks are very similar in terms of the fact that they both have a what would you call that? Like a wow, why am I blanking on that word? Not a successor, but there's a word that I'm looking for the person that basically, like, funds everything, but I am blanking on that word. But yes, but the difference being how, at least for me, especially how I deal with High Point, the difference is in the magic and what is actually being done. Because typically, in my opinion, Warlock does one of two things. Either it unlocks a potential power, or it grants you access to an unavailable power. Like usually it's a pool within yourself, a power pool, like, it's knowledge, right? Some wizards get spell knowledge. It's not like something that they weren't able to do. They were already able to cast magic, but now they're able to cast spells that nobody else knows how to cast. And then on the other hand, other situations are like, hey, I'm going to let you, dip into my pool of magic. I'm going to let you use whatever, magic that I've accumulated by being this, other dimensional entity or this really old creature. But with divine magic is a whole different level. That is god tier magic. I mean, that magic comes from gods and creatures and entities that can, create nothing, that can create from nothing. And the power scale is different, right? I mean, a warlock patron compared to a god would be, the equivalent of a like 5-level sorcerer compared to a 20th level wizard. It's just, or I guess vice versa, like a 5th level wizard against, a 20th level sorcerer. Like the idea of the power level and what their purposes are matter, at least to me. Because again, I mentioned this before. High Point, my setting is based off of the D&D 2nd edition Forgotten Realms as my kind of foundation. So the flow and dynamic of power really come into play in terms of how I break it apart. So a warlock patron is just some sort of powerful entity or creature that can somehow imbue you with knowledge or power to do what you normally couldn't. But gods are those divine entities that control and manipulate the actual physical world, and just again different levels of power, which is also why I like the differentiation that clerics and paladins have different things that they can do versus sorcerers and warlocks. That division to me is really important. Also, just because I like differences in magic magic usage. With High Point, I've even added several types of magic users, just because I didn't think D&D had enough. I like the creativity that can come with magic, so I wanted to expand on the types of magic users that my players can be. So hopefully that answered the question on if a paladin getting its magic elsewhere is just a warlock. Again, for me, divine magic and warlock magic, or warlock patrons, are just two different power scales. And yeah, Broombowl, definitely the source of the oath, I think, also really matters. For me, again, I was mentioning earlier, for me, I treat oath magic like oath magic does exist in High Point, but not the same way that it exists in 5th edition for Paladins. Oath magic to me is, little High Point histories here. One of the major things that High Point's built off of, one of them is Forgotten Realms from 2nd edition, and a couple other influences. One of them is the Apprentice Adept series from Piers Anthony. And in that series, there is some unique, dynamics with power and magic, and how it flows, how it operates, and how different people can use it. And one of the things that I really like in that series is there is a representation. It's not really called this, but there is a representation of oath magic. And it is reserved for moments and times when the individual is usually full of emotion, but it's not just, they're mad so they can make an oath. It's not just like this person. It is a moment in which the person has complete and total resolve for a situation. In the book series, the few times that this was used is actually not typically in a negative way. The few times you actually see it in the book series are declarations of love. So the main character, declaring his love outright for his individual, his significant other that his would be significant other eventually, and that is just shown to be significant because it is a perpetual magical declaration, right? It is an irrefutable, like, this is absolutely, beyond my concept of never not happening kind of thing. Another time is when one of the characters needed to basically put a war between two factions kind of to bed, and they essentially were trying to be the middleman and say that, we all need to put this aside because there are greater evils here. And again, the way in which the character saw it was basically, we all need to come together or it's the destruction of everything. That level of intensity, that level of there is no other option and this needs to happen, was also shown to be more powerful than, instead of just affecting the person that he was supposed to affect, that oath actually is shown to spread out and affect pretty much everybody around them. And that's kind of just one of the reasons why I think oath magic is best represented when it is a situation that is like either dire or extremely important for the player or the situation, because in those times I feel like you can, I guess, bend a lot of the rules and really have a lot of fun with what the player is trying to get out of that moment. So yeah, I feel like when you have paladins that can just take an oath of anything to get magic power, I just feel like for me, in the way that I like oath magic to work, it dilutes it a little bit. It kind of waters it down. Switching back between chats real quick, Soul says, what kind of knowledge, or with the knowledge of smite being defensive, couldn't the paladin make an oath to another PC, which would in turn give them powers still as compared to a deity? Again, this is where I feel like, yeah, it just, the oath paladin gets into a slippery slope, because what is an oath and how strong does it have to be and what does it have to be about? There's just a lot of if and ands in that situation, and I just don't think it's clear cut enough. Oh, thank you so much, Gifted Gabby. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. Just going through questions. What would Spider-Man be in D&D? It's a fantastic question. Spider-Man in D&D, most likely a monk rogue multi-class. Due to the martial arts, the extreme physical prowess, but also the stealth movement. Yeah, I would have, I mean, you could even say it's a tri-class, which is very, very rare, but I could even suggest that you could suggest a tri-class with ranger as well, because there are definitely some ranger-ish aspects to Spider-Man. So yeah, I would say, yeah, monk rogue, and then maybe a tertiary ranger subclass in there as well. And we have a hydrate. Thank you so much, Gab. I did need a drink. Soul says we should do sublet and subclasses. The College of Lore Bard into a Warlock. Interesting. College of Lore Bard. I think we went over that one in on stream one time. I'd be interested to do that. Turn that into a Warlock. Interesting. Your idea would be a deal made with the Bard like entity that grants them their bardic magical sacred abilities without which allow the Warlock to use the spells. Interesting. I could see that. I could see a Bard into a Warlock would be interesting. I'd have to read up on more of Lore Bard, College of Lore. But yeah, put it in Discord. Put it in Discord, and we will throw that on the next sublet and subclasses. Because we still need to do we still need to do the other archer, the Echo Archer. We need to do the Echo Archer to finish out the Echo Knight series, and then we can move on to the other ones. So Kaga and I just have to stop being lazy and actually do that. So what is my stance? Broomball says, what is my stance on magical contracts and TTRPG systems? So I love them. I use them a lot. In fact, it is very steeped in High Point lore that they're available, and in multiple different variations. I have everything. Thank you. I got that. I have everything from small things, like, again, so like the oath magic is something akin to that. I mean, you can do that. There are some entities that make magical deals that, you know, certain magical entities can basically make agreements, and those agreements are bound by magic. So that's another way that magical contracts can happen. And I also have things like Crossroads demons. So you can summon demons, make contracts with them for various things. I have creatures that know how to manipulate contracts, or basically know how to magically create magical contracts. Kind of like a spell. You basically just kind of are able to bind someone into doing something for an agreement. My favorite is how I do my Crossroads demons, because essentially they have the ability to act like genies only in the case of a deal. So the better, the better they are at making deals, the stronger they can be, because all of their magic is completely tied into the deal. And I really like playing around with that, because some of the smartest and longest lived Crossroads demons typically know how to work in like byproducts and side effects of deals in order to have, essentially play on effects where they can have their magic work in a way that is not obvious, because they don't, they're not able to just say, hey, I want this to happen because I'm magical. They have to have anything they do with their magic has to be done within the confines of a deal. So utilizing that is really important for them, but it's also really important for the players that interact with them. If the players are interested in making those deals with the Crossroads Demon, you also have to be aware that they're going to try to get the best out of it, but not just the best out of the direct deal. They're also trying to use their magic in the most powerful ways that will benefit them. So you have to just be really mindful with what they're trying to do, and how those knock-on effects might actually affect not just your outcome, but what you're allowing this, essentially this demon to do. So I think magical contracts are a lot of fun. I think that they can be very scary, especially in a 5th edition mindset, but 5th edition's already so broken that I don't think that a couple side deals with the DM would break anything too much. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining. Feel free to drop any questions that you have in chat about campaigns, encounters, D&D in general, TTRPGs, my setting of High Point, whatever. We're kind of just open to anything. Rubo also suggests Thief, Rogue, Monk, and depending on Spider-Man's iteration, Artificer. See, that's actually not a bad idea either. I said Rogue because a lot of the times he's usually, nimble, especially in the air. But yes, in certain iterations, I guess in most iterations, he is definitely an Artificer due to having to create most of his gadgets. I never liked the versions of Spider-Man where his webbing was like organic. I always preferred the versions that he had to make his own webbing, just because I also think that added I like it when they have those kind of weaknesses. I think, a really important thing for any character, any NPC, any BBEG to have is not necessarily an exploitable weakness, but a weakness that they are afraid to face because they know it's not necessarily an Achilles heel, but they do know that it's a detriment to them. And, so many times we try to make things that are fearless and perfect and super strong, but we forget that you got there by overcoming fear, not by not having. And a lot of the times when creating those characters, PBEGs, NPCs, people forget that, to add in, what did they overcome to get here? What did they have to do that, they may not have wanted to do? Because it's all too easy to, especially for BBGs, it's all too easy to make just I'm pure evil just because I'm evil. But that's not fun. Knowing why they're evil, figuring out what caused them to get there, that I think is going to be, it's more fun to just make them feel more real and give them a reason. I like the idea that BBEGs are the hero of their own story. I think it's a great literary device, but it can get played out. And there are just evil people out there. But again, there's always usually something that drove them over the line, or at least pushed them in that direction, and then it snowballed, right? And that's, I think, what I'm trying to get at is look for that. Look for that domino piece, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a choice or a tragedy, or even a good thing. I don't know. They got promoted when they shouldn't have, right? Like they were too young when they became king. Could be that snowball effect, right? Like you could say this king is evil, and you could say that there's no really there's no aspect of him that's redeeming. So you could say that, but without trying to say, well, he's just pure evil for the sake of being evil, you could take that same king and say, well, he was thrust into a kingdom that was in turmoil in the middle of war, and he was very young, and he was already, he just didn't have any good advisors, and blah blah blah. So all of these reasons, he just didn't have a better way of knowing how to do it. So yes, he's evil, but it's not for the sake of being evil. It's just that they didn't know any other way, and this is where life led them. And that can make a much more compelling BBEG, because it's not like he thinks he's the hero. It's not like he's trying to do good. They just don't know any better. They just, they saw how their parents ruled, and it was the middle of war. They saw a lot of nasty things, and so therefore even though the war's long gone, in their older years, they're just a tyrant because they grew up in that era where that was how you survived. It's just to be a tyrant, but it's not for malice. It's just, that's just how it is, right? It's not that, though, no, if I do this, everything, is destroyed, so I'm actually being good. It's just that that's just what they know. And I think that's fine. I think that you don't always need a super big tragedy. You don't need to have them lose their family. They don't need to be, on some crazy mission. But don't just have them be evil for the sake of being evil. Like, give them an opportunity to at least say, this is what pushed me this direction, or this was my final straw. I was already pretty evil, but once this happened, bam, I went full send, and I'm not going to stop. Soul, could you make the chat here as... Wait. Could you make the chat here as a deal maker entity and high point for your PCs and NPCs to make deals with? So I'm not really sure what you mean by make the chat a deal maker entity. Like you mean like... Yeah, I'm not really sure what you mean. Can you expand on that? But I have plenty of deal maker entities, so if you have an idea for one, I can definitely give you plenty. All right, TikTok. You guys got any questions? Post them in chat. We'll try to think of another topic. Let's see. Oh, I gotta give some people over. I'm gonna get some love over on Twitch. Someone did second, and I didn't see that. Bam. All right. And we got to hydrate. Thank you. Earlier, so that's all nice and good. What else can we talk about? We talked about oaths. We talked about oaths and oaths magic. We talked a little bit about warlocks and paladins. We talked about the swashbuckler build that Brubel is checking out. What is that? No. Ooh, looks like I'm getting either Chinese or Thai food tonight. Exciting. All right, so still waiting on Soul over there on the big purple to let me know what they meant by that. And I don't see any other questions in TikTok. So let's move on to another topic. So we were talking a little bit before about like the variations in magic, and I think magic is as prevalent as it is in D&D. I mean, it's obvious that it's prevalent, right? It's a very, it's high fantasy. You can't get away with it, but I want to make sure I'm going to say this correctly. Magic is so underutilized in D&D. And what I mean by that is there's so much magic, but it's so straightforward, direct, and to be completely honest, it's boring. It's there are a lot of times when we're doing homebrew review on Mondays that we talk that we get excited when someone has a new build, and that build includes things like brand new custom spells for a sorcerer, because or conditions, because it's like with the way that I view magic, it's not just an effect that you want to get off. Like I feel like there's too much focus on the idea that, well, magic is just a way to get a fantasy effect, and therefore that's what I'm going to do. I want X effect, so therefore I chose X spell, done deal, that's it, all over. And it's like when you have things like sorcerers, wizards, clerics, druids, warlocks, it's like you have all of these people, but yet all magic is boiled down to, I chose X spell, it cost X slots, that means that this happens. And for me, it takes away all of the fun and all of the creativity and all of the uniqueness that is magic, right? In High Point, if you're a cleric, your magic fundamentally works different. If if you're a wizard, your magic fundamentally works different. Same as a sorcerer and a druid. I have an entire breakdown. I have an entire video of this on our YouTube VOD channel. As part of I did like a 5-part series on High Point histories, and one of them is entirely on my magic system, and it's highly based off of second edition, but I don't know, it just feels like we've boiled down magic to a just, I want this thing to happen, so that's it's gonna happen now. And like one of my biggest pet peeves is they got rid of spell fail. Like that to me was one of the that was just one of the worst decisions I think they had made over the entirety of everything. Is the idea that magic just happens, I think is where it started to lose its uniqueness, when it all just started to meld together, and it's all just choose a spell, choose how many slots it is, and then the effect that you want is gonna happen. Oh, TikTok, why do you always act like I'm not here? Like, yes, I'm still talking. We got people in chat. Come on. But yeah, I feel like magic is just so the same across every magic user at this point that I'm kind of over it. Like I'm not interested in all these super high powered like spell combos when it doesn't matter who you are. It just depends on, do you have access to that spell list. I much prefer the tangibility of using magic being fundamentally tied to the character and the situation. I don't like this idea that it's just a list of things that you can do, that you just choose it, right? So what do I mean by that? Like what trying to think of an example. So one of the things that helped me decide how to set up my other types of magic, right? In High Point, I have different custom magic users. And the way that I kind of started that development is looking at not only how I want magic to work, but like in the background, right? Like how magic flows and how people control it. But fundamentally, what are the pros and cons of each type of magic usage, right? Because right now, it doesn't feel like there's any difference between a warlock and a sorcerer and a wizard and a cleric casting a spell. If they could possibly all have the same spell in their spell list, they would all cast the same spell the exact same way, period, end of story, and that's it. It's boring to me to say that all of them just do the same exact thing. So one of the things that I thought about is, if I were to have a group of spellcasters, like let's say I had a whole party of nothing but spellcasters, and they all got knocked out by one method or another, and they found themselves locked up. Let's do the classic jail cell. My thought process was, if you had 5 different magic users wake up, all from being knocked out, it stands to reason that you would have 5 different experiences. Because in 5th edition, if you all have essentially the same way that magic works. But in my thought process is, depending upon how you get your magic should depend on what experience you get waking up, right? So when a wizard wakes up, thinking 2nd edition old school mentality here, and the method that I use, like the Bansian system of memorization, I think the wizard, they wake up, if they don't have their spell book, they're fine, right? Like that's the concept, is the wizard wakes up, and after being knocked out, they've forgotten all their spells, because that's how it works, and they don't have their book to rememorize them. That is one experience that I think is totally valid, but it shouldn't be the experience of everybody. Such as the cleric. The cleric should be able to wake up, realize that they don't have any magic maybe on them, and pray to get their magic back. And they'd be able to, as long as they weren't cut off from their god. And there's even a situation where, since they were given it to them by their god in the first place, it's not like anything disappeared. It's like they could wake up and still have their magic. Same thing with a sorcerer. A sorcerer would just wake up and just be able to start slinging their magic regardless. They wouldn't have to do anything and check in with their god. They wouldn't have to worry about their book. They would just be able to do it. A druid would probably be more interested in figuring out, am I in a fully stone room with metal bars, or is there any wood? Am I on a dirt floor? Those things should matter. So to me, that was kind of where I started that conversation with myself of, if I had a group of Magic users, they all got knocked out for one reason or another, and then woke up, what would each of their experiences be after waking up and potentially losing their Magic? And I feel like that's why the experience of being a Magic user in the current D&D playfield is just boring, because none of that nuance exists, right? Like I mentioned earlier, spell fail. Spell fail was one of the best mechanics of all Magic use, because it gave that opportunity of taking away a little bit of your confidence, a little bit of your entitlement that, hey, you know what? I know this creature is, vulnerable to fire. I got fireball ready. It kind of takes some of that away and gives you that experience that not all Magic is guaranteed. And I don't know. I feel like, to me, taking away the fact that Magic could fail outside of counterspell or something like that just doesn't feel as good. I don't know. It just plain doesn't feel as good. I miss when Magic felt like it was an experience and not just another tool that I can just use whenever I wanted. I made a short about this not too long ago. I think it was last week, where I was saying that it's okay to give players things that are or it's okay to give players challenges that they are not prepped for or don't have all of their resources for. Simply basically saying that players don't always need to have 100% access to 100% of the things that they can do for every puzzle, for every situation. Sometimes it is the struggle, it is the lack of the tool that can be more engaging and more beneficial than saying, hey, your character can do a million things, so which one's going to be which one's going to help. That's where I think a lot of the creativity comes from. It's one of the reasons why I say that lower level gaming is so much more beneficial to any level of game. Starting back to level 1 will always be more beneficial than min-maxing out a 10th, 15th level character, because the lack of things you can do causes you to be more creative and be more ingenuitive in solving problems, and less focused on how do I get the biggest punch out of this turn? How do I get my numbers to go up as high as possible? I don't necessarily like the idea of every move has to be the best move. I like playing early levels because I don't have all of the magic and the tools and the tips and tricks. Sometimes it just takes being really creative and using a piece of rope in a way that your DM didn't think about, or really taking into account what's in the scene and what is in the setting, and is there anything that you can utilize that your DM has placed there, instead of relying on, well, how did I build out my character? Soul says, I accidentally made a min-max level 10 character for a one-shot Star Wars 5th edition. Okay. How do you accidentally make a min-maxer? That's what I want. I don't know if you can accidentally min-max a character, but, maybe you were just going for something that you thought would be good, and it just turned out to be OP. That happens. TikTok, if you have any questions, let me know. We are doing an active live Q&A. So if you have any questions on campaigns, encounters, anything D&D or TTRPG related, let me know. We're here to answer and talk and discuss. I'm not a pro by any means, but I have been doing this for almost 15 years. I've developed my own setting of High Point for over 10, and I have a lot of unique ideas. I don't really think that there's any wrong way to play any real TTRPG. I think that's kind of the whole point, and why they were created in the first place, was to give you a foundation to tell a great story, and to have some rules that everybody could understand and get behind to start with. But yeah, I'm very open to helping people come to their own conclusions on how they want to play, because it's all about fun. So if you have any questions, drop them in chat. We'll go for a little bit longer because my food is on the way. So we'll probably be here for maybe another 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes max, depending on how long it takes for the food to get here. But if you have any questions, let me know. We have talked about quite a bit already. We talked about Oath Paladins. We've talked about Swashbuckling Rogues. We have talked about high point deal makers and how I do magical contracts in High Point. Krista, hello. Thank you for joining. It is nice to see you. I did not get a chance to pick up the dice today, but I'm hoping that I will have it on Sunday morning. I should be able to pick it up on Sunday morning or even Saturday afternoon. So I will be reaching out to you this weekend. If we cannot connect on Sunday, I would definitely like to put something on the books for either next week or next weekend, so we can get that profile rolled for you. So I'm super excited to get you a personalized profile and get you your D20 back. But yes, I'm super excited, and yes, I will have those other videos to you this weekend as well. I'm looking forward to recording those, but I'm going on a backpacking trip tomorrow, so I will be leaving in the morning. I'll be back Sunday morning, and then I'll be doing all of that. So it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm glad that you're excited for this, because I've just been nonstop thinking about how I'm gonna like record and do the edits. So I've been thinking about it way too much. So I just gotta do it. Oh, I keep hitting the mic. I'm just gonna do it this weekend and send you some options. So, all right. Well, we have about another. Oh, what is that? Is that food update? It looks like it is. All right. Well, we got a little bit of time left. Yep. Yeah, we got some time left. Any other questions before we get out of here? Oh, I'm so happy. By the way, nice job on your new dailies. The roll for coffee. That's such a good idea. I do look forward to seeing the roll for coffee every morning. So good job on that one. I need to have something like that. Like I do enjoy my like daily hot takes, and I've been trying to do a little bit more like engagement with other content creators, but I would love to have like something like that, because you're gonna do actual roll for coffee soon. Awesome. I had something like that when we first started out. I did it for I think like the first like 6 to 8 months on TikTok. I was doing a daily post. Maybe I should bring that back. I used to do a thing called based on nothing else. It was basically my bone post, and I posted almost every single day. I would post a question based on nothing else. And then it was like some things of like, based on nothing else, which D&D class is the most likely to get married? Just flat out, that would be the question. It's you have no other contextual information. Just, I'm going to say, based on nothing else, you have this class or this fact, feature, and then choose an outcome. And I kind of miss doing those. I think the problem is they weren't getting much traction, but neither was the whole channel in general. So I think I didn't burn myself out, but I think I gave up on that before we were really kicking off. So maybe I need to bring back based on nothing else, because that was a fun series, and I have a whole list of like 100 different questions I never asked. So I'm gonna have to. I might have to bring that back, because it's I will over the weekend. I'll think about some new ideas, because it was fun. It was a good easy way to just go off of a list and make easy content. And I think I could get a lot more engagement now. I think I have a much better community on TikTok that we'd really be able to do that. Ooh, Soul gave us his overpowered Star Wars 5th edition 10th level character. It's the equivalent of a barbarian assassin rogue with an Adachi. With an Adachi. It does 2d4 plus its dexterity. Your added modifications gave them a +2 to attack rolls, bringing it to a +10 to attack. A serrated edge, a weapon, gives it an additional d4 of damage. Neutronium edge, which another +2, and the +3 from rage, and the 2d6 from a sneak attack. And if they get the same number on both die from advantage, they'll roll an additional d4 for damage. Yeah, that's okay. Did you intend it to do that, or was that just did you just think, hey, this would be a cool build, and then you did the math and was like, oh, did I do that? Maybe that's what ended up happening. Because I've done that before. I've been like, you know what? I have a cool like little multi-class build. That'd be kind of awesome. And then out of nowhere, it's like, no, no, it's not gonna work that way. But that's fine. uh, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I have some really hot takes on the whole min-maxing thing. I think actually that was one of my favorite hot takes. It always goes to show you, you never know what will go viral. Because nothing that I think is really, really good that I produce ever goes viral. And then the most random ass idea, the most random like thing that I did one time, and it literally just blew up to like 100K. And I'm just like, I have 2 videos over 100K. And that's it. Like I have those 2, and they are not even close to being the same type of video. Like you get all of these TikTokers who are like, oh, you know, look at your analytics, look at your most performing videos. You know, there's going to be some similarities. You're going to know what to do. And I'm like, my best performing video was me stitching Theater of the Unaligned. Great people, by the way. Go follow them everywhere if you can. But it was them talking about one of their more ridiculous builds. It was the Hex. What was it? It was the Hexblade Paladin Assassin, or Hexblade Assassin Paladin. And it was just like this really ridiculous build where they were just like, that's all they gave us was, I'm an Assassin Hexblade Paladin. And then it just talked about this ridiculous amount of damage that they were able to do. And so I thought it would be kind of fun to be like, okay, with just what we know, because I mean, obviously you can pretty much make anything happen. You know, if you say, I want a barbarian rogue to do 500 damage in a turn, someone can build it. But what I wanted to know is, what is the minimum? What would be the absolute minimum build for them to do that much damage? And so I did. I researched I researched Assassins, Hexblade, and Paladins. I researched all 3, and I researched all of the subclasses based on the description of what they said. So it was Assassin, Hexblade, Paladin. It was like Divine Smite, and they named like 3 things that the powers that they were using. So I basically went in, found out what subclasses they were using, found out what the minimum level and situation would have been in order for them to justify that much damage. And that's what I did. I just was like, let's break it down. And so I stitched it. I broke it down and said they're like a level, I think they ended up being like a level 13, like 2-10-1, because they just needed to like unlock Paladin for like one thing. And then I broke it down. I even figured out that, because again, I wanted it like, what's the earliest they could have done all that damage? And I found out that their build actually had a very particular type of enemy that it would do more damage against. So even in my scenario, I said, we're going to assume they're attacking this type of enemy because they get a bonus. And we're going to assume the weapon that they're using has finesse, because finesse will give them this bonus. And then I put it all together and calculated it out that the damage that they were dealing was like 1 die below like the max that build could have done. So had they rolled all that damage, they didn't actually do perfect damage, which made more sense to say it that way. So yeah, that was like my most popular video ever of all time. I think it's sitting at what was it, 180? I think it's 180 right now. No, I'm sorry, that was not my most popular. So my Theater of the Unaligned video is sitting at 111,000. My most popular video, in complete contrast to that, sitting at 180,000, is a snippet from our live stream way back, like a year and a half ago, where I was talking about a hook for a campaign being an entire town being one gender, and how long it would take the party to realize. Like how many descriptions, how long would it take for your party to catch on that there are there's only one gender. How that got 182,000 views, I don't know. But what does that tell me? I broke down someone else's crazy build, and I had this random idea for a hook. That doesn't tell me anything. I don't know what to do with that, because everything else, I mean, my next closest one was 10K, and what was that one about? Oh yeah, and that one was about also our live stream, about a multi-zone creature, a boss that literally had like multiple, like took up multiple places on the battlefield. Um, yeah, I have absolutely no idea how I'm supposed to take that, but I don't know. Maybe I should just start coming up with those ideas. I don't know. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I could do breakdowns again. Um, uh, yes, it was one of the breakdowns that you tagged me in, Soul. I think you did ask me for that breakdown originally, and that's what or prompted me to do it because I thought it was such a cool idea. But yeah, ever since then, you just kind of try to chase that shit, or chase it all. But I don't know, chase the fame, as I was gonna say, not chase the shame. Don't chase the shame. Um, yeah. Oh, so I'll figure it out. We'll figure out what to do more content on. I think. Yep, I think Krista is definitely inspiring me to bring back Based on Nothing Else. So I think I will do that next week. I'll start bringing back Based on Nothing Else along with my other content. And yeah, I think I'm going to also continue with the engagement collabs because a lot of my more recent videos have definitely been kicking off. Surprisingly enough, I had this 1 minute video that did very, very well. I think I just happened to hit the right 3-second hook that they always say, because I started it out with saying that you're not bad at making encounters. 5th edition is a superhero simulator, and I think that was just the perfect hook for that day. There's no other reason, because most of my videos don't do as well as that one particularly did. So all I can think of is that it was just calling people out for something like that, saying you're not bad at doing this, the game's bad. I mean, people want to hear that, right? Like, and maybe that's, again, I want to be authentic. I want to be someone who makes content that I like, makes content that I would want to watch. And again, I'd love to be a content creator for content creators, but I see stuff like that and I'm just like, is that all I got to do? Do I just have to say the thing that just catches their attention? And I'm just like, 'cause I just don't want to be that. I don't want to be the you're not doing. I don't want to tell people what they want to hear. I honestly want to be genuine and authentic. But there are times when you see videos like that pop off and you're like, do I just need to do that? Do I just need to tell you what you want to hear? I don't want to be that. I don't. But I don't know. Like, I mean, it doesn't help that it really doesn't help that there are 100 other faces that look exactly like this talking about D&D, right? Like that's I think part of the reason why I've been trying to do a little bit more outreach and a little bit more differentiating content. Not that I want to get away from D&D and TTRPGs, but I got to do something that pushes me out of the standard, because there's too many people. I think it's good that we're all in the same space, but there's too many people with the same flavor, with the same style, with the same conversations, and I'm really just wanting to find a way that I can find my space and be authentic and do the content that I want to do, but also be unique and different enough to stand out. Because I don't want to make the slop content. I don't want to make I don't know. It's a weird ride. It's been a weird ride on TikTok for this last year. And now that I'm trying to get like the dice profiler, launched and everything, a lot of it is just really trying to think about where I want to take it to the next step. Like I'm in that phase now. It's been funny because Misfit Gamer Studios has been around for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in May, so a little over 2.5 years. And the TikTok channel is only a little over a year old. We just got our 1-year anniversary like a month or two ago. And it was so funny because at the beginning we were so just flying, in the moment, right? Every stream was pretty much thought of like that day. We had no plans for anything. It took a lot of trial and error to be good on camera, but it got to a point to where we shifted from just not thinking about things to kind of saying, hey, what are we going to do next week, to now I'm just constantly thinking, okay, I've done this already, here's what I'm going to be doing, but my mind is not on the what am I going to be doing. It's what's after that. Like that's where I'm at with all of this. Is we're good on our live streams. I mean, we're very consistently streaming twice a week. I'm consistently posting on TikTok. Our OSR VTT is in development, and we're about to play test it, which will then get us out of alpha and go into beta build, which is fantastic. And the dice profiler launched, and that's all going, and it's fantastic. The website's going. It's like all of these things are there, but it's like I recognize that I can't do any more than I'm doing, right? Like I know that I'm maxing out my schedule with streams. I know that we are streaming when we can. I know that I'm pulling in new dice for the dice profiler as often as I can. We are making content as often as we can. I mean, I could probably make more content. Let's face it, I could probably do more TikTok content. But at the end of the day, it's that. It's the idea that I'm doing what I can be. So my mind is now focused on, well, what's going to be after this? What's going to be the next thing you do, right? Because I can't push OSR any faster than we are, right? We have to test it. We have to do all of these things. But my mind is like, hey, once you're testing it, then what, right? Because that's where we were last year. We were constantly in this phase of, hey, we've tested this. Well, now what? And I don't want to be there anymore, which is why, I push things off. Like the ADMG has been pushed off till next year. The Oracle has been pushed off till next year. Things of that sort, because I didn't know the answer to the, well, what's next? When you get this part done. Like when I was working on the Oracle, I was working so hard for weeks and months just to try to get it to pull the data that I wanted to off of YouTube. And then once I was able to, it was like, okay, well, now what? Like I wanted that to happen so badly, but there wasn't the next step. I wasn't ready for, well, once I get that done. And that's the step that I'm at now. That's where we're at now is, OSR is going great, but what happens when alpha's done? Like once we say we've tested the game, what's next? Well, what's next is talking to somebody and getting a interface ready so I can make an actual VTT for Twitch. And then what's going to be right after that? Well, then it's more testing. And then what's after that? Then it's launch. And then what's after that? Well, it's marketing and gameplay. But it's a weird place to be there because I think about the TikTok channel now and what kind of content I want to create. And then it's just like, okay, but what's next, right? Like once I get to the stage where I'm making, videos that are 10,000 views each, what's next? What am I doing with those videos, right? And that's where it's like, okay, I need to shift the content into what I want, not just content that's going to get views. Because once you get content that has views, if you don't know where you're going with it, it's just, again, I don't want to get into that downward spiral where I'm just making slop, the same type of slop over and over and over and over again, just because it gets views. I want to have a purpose. And I think mainly that purpose is going to be that content creator for content creators. I want to start kind of bridging that gap to be more of a not an aggregate. I don't want to be an aggregate, but I would just love to be someone who can work with other content creators and build more ideas out, right? Have more, not just stitches of each other, but just, again, build a community where we can work with each other, reach out and do more combined content. There's so many creators out there making their own things. Like, I've talked multiple times on this stream about the ADMG, our Advanced Dungeon Master's Guide. And one of the things that I've been thinking about, what I would love to do is, over time, with working with all these amazing creators on this platform, is there's so many people making their own stuff. There's one that I was talking to just the other day, and he's making a system, and he has these acronyms that are phenomenal for any DM to utilize to help answer questions about NPCs, about diplomacy, about politics, about geography. And I was so enamored by them that I don't want to just like automatically be like, oh, I'm going to put that in my book. But then things like that get me thinking, if I started to reach out and engage more with the content creators and be a content creator for content creators, something like that would be amazing, where if I could publish the ADMG with a lot of my ideas and a lot of the ways that I think the game could be enhanced, but then also showcase and highlight other creators in a way that they've also done the same thing, I think it would be a much bigger project than me just trying to say, hey, I want to sell a book. I think it would be an opportunity for many DMs to come together and say, hey, we're not trying to create a brand new system, but here's a way to improve your current system and the way that you play. Because that's what the ADMG is about. The ADMG is not there to replace the standard DMG from DMD. It is, the APHB is not there to give you a new game or give you new rules. The ADMG is going to be a collection of all of our thoughts and our ideologies of how we play the game and the ways that we've changed the rules as written to better suit our dynamic. That's not to say that we are making a book. We're not making a book of homebrew. Like, it's not just going to be a giant book of homebrew rules. The ADMG is not just going to say, hey, don't use this, use this instead. What the ADMG is going to talk about is the fundamentals. It's going to point out the fundamentals of the rules and discuss what we like to call raw versus ride, which is rules as written versus rules as intended. It's actually raw versus ride versus rad, which is rules as written versus rules as intended versus rules as desired. Raw, ride, and rad are like 3 layers that I would have a whole chapter about. And instead of saying, hey, don't use the game's HP the way that it says to use HP, here's a whole different way that you and your players can learn. We don't want to do that. We don't want to create a whole new set of rules. We don't want to create a book where people have to say, hey, you're just homebrewing a bunch of stuff, make your own game. Like, we're not making a new Daggerheart or Draw Steel or anything. But what like that chapter would talk about is, hey, here is HP. Here are the fundamentals of what HP is. What is the history, what's the concept, what it represents. It's not just damage, it's your fatigue, it's your willingness to go on. And so in that chapter, I would talk about my fundamentals of HP, where HP isn't about life and death. It's about your willingness to continue, right? 0 HP doesn't necessarily have to be unconsciousness. But it normally is, because if you're unconscious, you cannot continue. But, being super low on HP could also just mean the idea of, is this the battle I needed to pick, right? Like, pick your battles. Is this the battle that I'm willing to sacrifice my life for? And so that whole chapter would just talk about different ways that you can view HP and different ways that you can utilize the rules of HP loss to your benefit. What have been suggested that after you reach a certain point, detriments can start to happen. And the chapter would go into how elimination and death should be a choice in combat and not the desired or guaranteed outcome. So those are kind of the things that the ADMG will go over, because it's not a new rule set. It's just a way to say, hey, here's the way that we interpret the rules, but here's also a way that you can expand the way that you imagine how these rules are supposed to fit into the game, and how those rules can be modified to give the players a different experience. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I would want to do, and I would love to be able to highlight other creators. I think that would be phenomenal, and just a great way to also collab and and give people an opportunity to, because there's so many creators that have good ideas but not enough for a whole book. So it'd be a great way to call them out and give them a little bit of a kickback for their creation for the communities. So last thing from Twitch, the day I see OSR in game stores, I'll remember the days when you were there during the creation. I mean, that would be interesting. I don't know how I would ever put OSR into a game store, but it would be cool. That would be dope. I mean, I guess Jackbox games, it would just be that. So if that ever happens, then yeah, we'll all remember the day. We'll remember the day. All right, well, my food's here. We've been on live for almost 2 hours. I think this was successful. I kind of like this. I like this little duo live thing. I've been wanting to go live on TikTok a whole lot more. So I think I will do more of these where I just do little pop-up things. More likely it'll be on TikTok, but I kind of like this little dual camera setup. So who knows? Maybe I'll do more of these little just Q&A ones. But that's going to be me. My food just got here, so I appreciate everybody for showing up. Thank you for all the likes and the hangouts, the gifts. And the views. We will be back another day with more D&D discussions. Maybe this will be the new D&D discussions, since we kind of gave up on that that naming structure. Maybe this will be the new D&D discussions, where I'll just pop up and do some chit chat. Anyway, thank you again. I'm gonna go eat some dinner. Soul, thank you very much for giving me some questions and hanging out. Gabby, thank you for showing up. Quachi and Brubel, thank you so much for everybody that hung out in Twitch and everybody on TikTok. Ace, Tony, Gonzalez, Bubba, Duality. I don't think any of you are still here, but thanks for showing up. I appreciate y'all. We'll be back with more content, regularly scheduled content on Monday, and more TikTok content whenever I get around to it. Cheers. Now I just gotta remember how to end everything. There we go. So, bye, TikTok. Love you. All right, TikTok's gone. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I'm out of here. I'm gonna go get some food. But yeah, no, I really do appreciate all the ideas. Send me messages in Discord if you guys have any more. But yeah, OSR next week, and we'll get back to reviews on Monday. Cheers.